Hello, and welcome. I'm going to give a short guide on how Rangers should be played at endgame. I can't speak for Gunblades because I have yet to experiment with them, though I may do that here shortly because I have the spec for it. I will say that primary stats are a huge concern for many people. A lot of people look at strength and think, oh, I should put strength in that, it increases my damage. Problem with that is for one attribute point, you get a measly 1.7 damage at level 60. It gets scaled down quite heavily for some reason. So I've chosen to go full ferocity, as you can see by my attributes. I have a base of maximum ferocity, 283, and then my gear in every slot available has ferocity. My gloves have strength, though I believe I could find ferocity on them, but the strength helps my base damage, which helps my crit. Crit hit power is very important. It scales far better than crit chance does. The spell power strike increases elemental damage, which most of your attributes or abilities end up using at late level. Crit hit chance is nice where you can get it, but I don't recommend going for it because you hit a soft cap around 30% on a ranger, assuming you use the masteries to get the 5% bonus. Crit hit power goes up much better. As you can see, 66 crit hit power points. Take that off, goes to 56%, if I can take it off. Goes down 2% for 66 points. 66 points isn't a whole lot, considering that, the max on a level 59 object is 71. 71 points. So, add up all the missing points from that across all items, and you end up with another percent at least. Physical damage on necklaces is very nice. Not only physical damage, but you can also get dragon spell power, which is part of the bow attributes. Dragon spell damage and ferocity, along with your physical damage, add up to equal up your dragon bite and dragon stab damage, which is much easier to see here. So dragon bite, it does physical damage and then dragon spell damage plus ferocity, and then if they're below 35% they take additional damage. Combo for that is dragon stab, which is the exact same thing at a higher level. It's an extra 500 points of damage or so. It's very cheap. It's 80 points for dragon bite and it's 40 action points for dragon stab. It equates out to the exact same cost to use both of these abilities to use Dragon Raid kick twice. And it does more damage. There is absolutely no reason to stick with Dragon Raid unless you absolutely need the knockups, but Dragon Bite and Dragon Stab both stagger. Staggering prevents them from hitting you, but the problem is it is a small linear AoE with a max of 20 targets. By linear AoE, I mean think of your arrows. They work the same way. They go in a straight line. The area of effect surrounding that bubble is not very large. What you need to look for on your weapons is Dragon Spell, Physical, and Crit Hit Power. I've got all three on my bow, luckily. On to Masteries. Primary Masteries, if you have multiple tabs, the best thing to do is get all of your buffs on one. And then get all of your combat onto another. On this one, I have a basic combat setup. I've got Hunting Bow, which is only 8.4% more damage for the bow. I've got the Aesthetics of Violence and Heavy Blow. I had originally built this as my combat tree. Later, I decided it was much better to go minus the buffs, full damage, because I can buff with one tree and then switch and use combat in the other. I recently found out that you can have both Dexterity, which is a multi-option buff for 25% ferocity, and Hunting Stance, which is bonus physical damage, by having them on separate masteries. That gives you a total damage increase along with a ferocity increase, which increases your ability to crit. So overall, a massive universal damage increase. The abilities I stick to, of course, are Dragon Bite and Dragon Stab. On this attribute tree, I maxed them out. I also put a few points into Magic Arrow just for the extra 4th shot damage. The method for buffing, which a lot of people seem confused on, and I'll go through it here. I have a dragon with blood pumping. It's plus 30% damage for 15 seconds. This is a key attribute in why I'm capable of doing more damage than most people. When I buff, Arcane Spell converts a percentage of your physical damage into Dragon Spell damage. If you use blood pumping to increase your physical damage, the portion that Arcane Spell takes from your physical is converted into Dragon Spell remains the same when the blood pumping wears off. So the difference between using blood pumping and not using blood pumping is a damage conversion instead of a damage increase. I have 2400 physical damage completely unbuffed. If I use blood pumping, that goes to 3137. Use Arcane Spell to convert that. It goes to 2667. But when blood pumping wears off, my physical damage drops to 2051. But if you switch to damage of attributes, you see that I have almost 1000 Dragon Spell damage. That 1000 Dragon Spell damage makes up the second component of my Dragon Bite damage. My most common usually used skill. So the simple act of using blood pumping for, if nothing else, just to buff, is a total damage increase. Instead of converting 300 physical damage into 300 Dragon Spell damage, I convert it into 900. It's a massive difference and should never be underestimated. Attribute wheel I use simply because it's time for the video where I get to show off a little bit. I'm going to show you the basic bow ranger combat mechanic. It's simple. Stuff in this dungeon is pretty stupid, so I have to physically pull it. My recommended heals are Healing Light and Lightwell. If you stand in Lightwell and use Healing Light, you'll regenerate 10 action points a second along with all the healing. Makes it much, much easier to get through a long burst. And there's a room cleared. It's basically kite around and use Dragon Breath because it applies a dot, and for every enemy that it hits, or for every instance of the fire that is created, it does an additional hit. So on large enemies, if you shoot along the length of their body, you can hit multiple times. It makes it extremely useful for fighting big bosses because one ability it'll rack you about 20,000 damage. It's pretty crazy. It's also extremely fun. These things are level 60, 25,000 HP, and it takes me 2 or 3 hits to kill them. It's not terribly hard to achieve either. I mean, most of this gear didn't take me that much to acquire. But Rangers are also the fastest class in the game, so running through trash to get through the dungeon is not that big a deal. I will be giving a categorized list of what I think are the most important item bonuses and attributes for Rangers. They will be listed in priority order. I will also be listing proposed mastery specs along with the importance of those in my opinion. Again, all of this is opinion based. Some people think Gunblade is better. I don't understand why. I have yet to experiment with the higher level abilities that Gunblade gets, but I honestly can't see them being as good because their base damage is low. They use a completely different attribute set for damage. They're focus and elemental instead of ferocity and dragon spell. It's just a weird split system. Most of your base abilities use focus and elemental, like your dragon breath and your the lightning strike part, along with your dragon raid combo. It's a really weird attribute split. I don't understand it. I don't know why they bothered making two different attribute primaries. But I would never waste a attribute point itself on strength on a ranger. It's easier just to get it from gear to increase your base damage. It can come on weapons and gloves to my knowledge. I don't know if it can come on any other slot, but that's how you get your strength. And then you get damage on necklace, gloves, and your weapon. It's not a bad place to farm gems, because they drop stuff you can extract for gems as well as actually being able to search.